Hi, welcome to the third video installment of my backyard garden. Uh, this time I have some things to say about planning your garden for success in terms of its space. Now, a lot of houses in this area are faced the wrong way, and I have actually not only the perfect arrangement but also the perfect view, because this is my backyard view. And unlike a lot of people in the city, I don't have much in the way. Now, this isn't a pretty mountain, but I do have quite a nice view because I don't have anyone around me. The preference is to have an eastern backyard, and that's because two reasons. Number one, in the evening when you're home, or in the morning, the sun is actually behind that mountain when I get out here, and so I'm in the shade when I first start working here. Then the sun comes up, except in July when you basically are in the sun all day long. But I have the maximum advantage of shade when I'm actually going to be working in the garden, so that when I'm out here it's pleasant. Number two, this is because physiologically most plants stop photosynthesizing about 10 a.m. so you want their sun to be in the morning and then the shade to be in the afternoon, because right now most of these plants aren't doing anything besides just trying to stay alive. This one thinks it's going to flower and doesn't know I'm just going to deadhead it every time it tries, because I want a bush and I don't want flowers, because then the bush stops growing and dies. So I wanted them to be protected. In addition to that, you'll see I put up this very unsightly drop cloth here, camo netting, in order to filter the sun during the hottest part of the day, because this is the southern exposure, and as you can see my neighbor provides almost no shade, actually no shade at all to my house. And so in order to protect the sprouting plants, I needed something between them and it in order to protect them. This might be one of the reasons why my tomatoes are doing as well as they are, is because this is north, this is south, and so during the middle of the day and then into the afternoon, my house protects them, and so they get filtered sun, but they're never under the direct sunlight, like the corn that was over here that's dead and else died. Let's see. Oh, you can see this. This was a pumpkin vine, and it was actually pretty extensive, and then we had 10 days in a row this year of 110 plus temperatures, and it was gone just like that. I think that's pretty much... I lost some flowers back here. This one here to the left of the hose, which I really liked. This one that's right here, that in the wet spot that you probably can't even see, which I also liked, but they both died. And then I had some other plants back in here that are dead. There were, I think, 6 of these. Originally I had 8 sunflowers, and only 4 of them are still here. So the sun does have a significant impact on, so it's important to keep the sun off of it. That's actually the big problem. It is not water. Most of it is actual sun. One other thing I noticed is if you have too much fruit, the plants will sacrifice the fruit in order to save themselves. So you can see this is a grapevine and it's August and there are no clusters on it because I didn't water it enough. Same thing with these lemon plants. They should be loaded with their second load of lemons, and there are no lemons on them because you can see here we have new leaf growth, because they're getting enough water for that but not in order to make fruit. So there are some in fruiting plants there is a water relationship, but for everything else it's about the sun, because this basil plant gets tons of sun, and you can see about how big it is. Here's my hand for scale, and so this is one basil plant, and it's gargantuan. I have 2 of them total, and that would be oodles for me. I had to protect the asparagus initially from the shade, which is why I have these wheelbarrows here. They're not for decoration, they're to block the starts. And then you can see here in the shade I have my strawberry plants shaded by these bricks, just to keep the direct sun off of them and protect them during the day. So the sun is the major threat. Other threats include the wind, because if you want things to pollinate and you don't want everything to be ripe at the same time, you need to know which way the wind blows, and that's sort of a difficult thing. I had the distinct advantage of having a sister who was in architecture, and she ran up a prevailing wind diagram for me, so I know where the prevailing winds are. In the summer they come primarily from either the southeast primarily or the southwest, which is over here. In the winter they come from this direction, and so in the winter I basically get no wind because the neighbor's house blocks it, and that's just how it is. The other thing which you can't tell until you plant your garden is where the hell the bees are, because bees will go out and pollinate in a spiral from their hive, and so if you are planting parallel to the spiral, everything ripens at the same time. If you parallel or plant perpendicular to the spiral, then you'll have a staggered ripening. And so these are all planted parallel to the bees. So next year I'm actually going to plant them this direction, so that as they go from south to north in my yard, I actually have staggered ripening of the tomato plants, because the bees come from somewhere in this direction. That's the southeast, and I have no idea exactly where they are, but that's where they live, based on the staggered progression of ripening in my backyard. So let's see. We talked about the sun, we talked about the wind, and we talked about the insects. Oh, the last thing is symbiosis between plants and their environment. So you'll notice that some of these planters are planted very thick. So in this particular one here, we have, this is a Brussels sprout plant. This is mint lavender. These are pole beans that I didn't put on a pole. All in here with strawberries and my lemon tree, and they protect each other. They keep the ground shaded so that it loses less water. They shade each other so that the plants share the damage, and you can see these leaves here. This is actually sun damage to the leaf and not just dehydration. I really don't know how to explain it any better, but you can tell if you look at some of these in here that are really beat up that those are sun damaged leaves. So some of this is about keeping them together. One of the other things that I know is important is what's called mycorrhizal fungi, which are fungus that grow attached to the roots of flowering and fruiting plants. And you can tell by looking at grapevines which ones have it. So I'm going to come around the other side here and show you my different grapevines. So this is a Vitis riparia. This is a Nevada native. Won't tell you how I got them. Oh, good, I have flowers on my blackberries. Good, good, good. This is a red flame. This is the one most people buy in the supermarket. This is a Vitis vinifera, Vitis riparia. This is the same Vitis vinifera that we saw earlier, and this is a Vitis riparia. And you can tell very obviously which one does not have mycorrhizal fungi attached to it, because these other three, much, much greater growth. This one here is just, it's suffering because it doesn't have the fungus attached to it. The fungal advantage is that it helps the plant to extract things from the soil, to be greater nourished. This ultimately leads to better quality fruit, more abundant fruit, healthier fruit, tastier fruit. But since they don't have any fruit this year, that's not actually a problem. But you can tell from the growth itself that this particular one is staggered in its productivity compared to the others. That's something that comes from organic material exposure, from water, from proper nourishment and care. And I just, because I haven't finished that back corner there, it's just going to have to wait. And I'm keeping it alive and hoping it lives long enough for me to fix the problem. Anyway, I'll share a few links and a few other thoughts on that, and then that will end this segment.